This is a trade recap for Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. Yeah, trying to think. Pretty good day. Pretty good morning so far. I want to say it was number 25 of 30 for one and done. So definitely coming into the home stretch here. Pretty good morning. Trying to think of anything that jumps out at me right off the hop. In terms of issues, not really. Though there was some discussion again in the room, some good lessons that were given this morning by Pat. And again, something I'd said that he then kind of gave some feedback on. And it's one of those things where words matter and the words you use. And sometimes getting some feedback on this stuff isn't the worst thing in the world. It helps you kind of sort through and figure out necessarily where you're going right and you're going wrong. So that's one of the advantages of having a coach and a mentor, especially with something as difficult as this. So speaking of coaching and mentoring, if you're interested in a coach or a mentor because you're either new to day trading or you've been struggling with it, then honestly, one of the best things you can do is do exactly that. Find a good, competent coach and mentor. And there aren't a whole lot of them out there. So if you are, I highly recommend Pat Mitchell over at Trick Trades. You can find his website at tricktrades.com. And you can find his YouTube channel over at Trick Trades. And he has been a professional trader for a little over a decade now. And he basically proves that every day in the room, giving us, lessons, guidance, developing trade plans, going over strategy in every little detail and aspect that is in the framework of his strategy. And we generally kill it every day. I mean, it's one of those things where the hit rate is kind of silly. It is kind of silly, but again, this is the level of competence that, again, he has achieved, and he is trying to teach and pass on to the members of the service. And it is an education service. It is not a trade alert service. So don't want there to be any misconceptions there. And if you are, like I said, interested in some of the information he puts out there, check out his YouTube channel. He has over 1,700 videos, I believe, at this point. Yep. And you can get a taste and a sampling of what he offers. And just know that inside the surface, it gets way deeper, flushed out ideas, all of that. And it's one of those things where it's times it's kind of drinking like from the fire hose or from the waterfall. It can be a little overwhelming, but at the same time, it's one of those things where having these lessons, you get to sit there, listen, learn, absorb, digest, and then apply it during every trading day. So if you're interested, I highly recommend checking him out if you want to take this seriously. Maybe we can get into some more details on that later in the video. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the charts. Here is the recording of the live session. I hadn't done it the past couple of days just because I was wondering whether or not it was even kind of worth it to do it, but I think I am because I like to see the price action myself. It's hard to recall without it, so bringing those back. Apologies if, again, that was something that you like to see. And here he goes. This is basically at the open because I just remembered to get everything kind of switched over. So we are about 9 seconds into the open. Watching both SPY and Qs as usual. Have our 1 minute charts here in the middle. Then we have our daily charts here on the left, and I have my order execution here on the right. The levels that you see here in blue are selected by Pat, and he builds our trade plans around that, and we follow and execute. I add these risk lines on there because that's just something I personally like to see. He doesn't have that kind of thing on there, but again, it's one of those things where hopefully get to the point where, again, I don't need it, and I can do so without any issues, needing that kind of visual cue. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and hit play on this one. So we're just in, and I guess you can see, obviously it's like if cues, I'm gonna kind of just go over the nitty gritty of the trade plan. Cues comes down into this blue level here, gonna take it long. If it comes up into the moving averages, that was kind of the first short. It was these cluster moving averages. And then on SPY, it's kind of one of those things where same thing comes down into this level to start and average in on this level and give a little bit of wiggle room for the long. And then coming up into the moving averages here on SPY would have been the first initial short with this upper shorting level if it came through. Obviously, with doing one and done, that's a lot of different trades that can trigger at different points in time in the morning. So usually just stick to the first one that triggers unless there's something really wonky going on, like the risk is skewed or whatnot. So yeah, I'm just kind of waiting to see what sets up and which one triggers first. Making sure, again, all the proper options are selected. Q starts making its way up. Entered there. Tested the 5. Comes a little bit further. Taps into, I believe that's a 20. And then we're just waiting for that reaction to see, or if we push a little bit higher. Probably could have actually towards the peak of that. And there's a sell right there. It was pretty quick. Probably could have thrown in, again, an extra contract there just to correct the average. But again, happened the way it did pretty quickly, and just kind of wait to see, the follow through on that. And yeah, that was more or less that trade. Doesn't seem like much, but it's for, again, a single contract. I mean, enough. And it's one of those things where I think people get a little misinformed or delusions of grandeur, maybe, that it's one of those things like you don't need to wait for, again, or have the expectation that this contract's going to, go to the moon in terms of, the profit on it. I mean, especially when you're growing a small account, you can't do that. You got to take that first reaction, make your money, and move on, because the consistently banking of money is how you grow your account, which allows you to take more size. And it becomes again, you hear a lot about negative feedback loops. It becomes that positive feedback loop. So it's one of those things where as you're growing constantly, again, by little increments, you will eventually get to the point where it's like, yeah, you can take larger sizes. You are more flexible in terms of like averaging in and working positions, as opposed to it's like, okay, you just got to kind of nail it in and out real quick. And that is more or less all you can do on small size, which is fine. It's just one of those things where it's like that gives you the opportunity to really refine your entries and exits so you know how to bank profit. And then once you've banked profit, you can, again, as you add size in down the road, you can keep a little bit on, hold for a little bit longer to give a little bit more room to run and that kind of thing. So it opens up the potential, but you kind of have to learn how to do that and then earn the right, more or less, and the ability to play with more size, because if you're not ready for it, size will do nothing but damage you. Just like leverage will do nothing but damage you. So as you can see, that trade was pretty quick, in and out. Did I nail the top of it? No. Did pay on the first reaction and got, again, an average amount of green out of that. So nothing wrong with that. Step it forward a little bit, and as you can see, came up and then just really fell apart. So again, another opportunity to add there, and again, another potential beautiful trade that just works. So yeah, again, it's one of those things where that's how that stuff can unfold, and it can be very consistent with it. So this is what that kind of looks like with everything still. It came down all the way down, ultimately towards this little low here at pre-market. And yeah, like from there to there, what is that if you're averaging in, say, around there? So that's 606.5 down to 603 ish. So 3.5 points of movement on the equity, which would have, again, just would have rocked it on the actual option. Let's see here. So that's the right one selected. So what would that peaked out at? So that was about 945. So 45. So it peaked out at about, say, 375 a contract. And you would have been in, say, your averages and around here, say 2 to 275. So you're talking 100 a point of premium. So it's one of those things where it's like that's $100 per contract. So it's one of those things where it's like when you get to those higher stages of trading, it's one of those things where like this becomes very, again, trying to think of the right word to use, lucrative, especially when you can hold on to just like one contract and just kind of let it ride. But you need to get to that stage, and that's one of those things. Like doing something like 1-on-1 is definitely, one and done is definitely worth the efforts at the beginning. It seems like it's slow, monotonous, and you're not really making much progress, but you're laying the foundation and solidifying your discipline and consistency to really, really set the right mentality going forward, which is the important thing. So that is how today went. And like I said, number 25 of 30. So this will kind of like phase 1 of this, if you want to call it that, will be done next week. And then we're moving on to phase 2, and we'll make some adjustments in terms of size and whatnot, duration, and maybe another rule or two, and basically go from there and repeat the process. And if you're interested in learning how to do this, again, I highly recommend Pat Mitchell over at Trick Trades. You can go to the site, tricktrades.com. If you're interested in the Trick Trades SizeUp program, which is what I do, and a lot of the other members do, there's a link for the webinar down in the description below to, again, go through the details of that Pat put on a while ago when he first launched it. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you there in the service if you are truly committed to learning how to do this on a professional level. Other than that, that's all I got. Hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see everyone tomorrow. Have a good one.